Welcome, traveler, to another journey through the frozen depths of Skyrim's history. Tonight, we turn our attention to the College of Winterhold, that precarious bastion of magical learning perched at the very edge of the world. Beyond the surface story of the Dragonborn's rise to Arch-Mage lies a labyrinth of academic hierarchies, ancient legacies, and secrets buried in the Midden's depths, the kind of details that the college itself has half forgotten, preserved only in dusty ledgers and the memories of those who have walked those frost-rimed halls for decades. These are not the grand tales of dragon priests and world-eating serpents, but the quieter truths, how a student becomes a master, which archmages left legacies written in blood and stone, what really happens in those summoning circles when the wards hold firm and when they fail. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of ancient storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if you like the content. The wind howls across the sea of ghosts, carrying with it the salt spray and the ancient cold that has claimed so many who venture too far north in Skyrim. At the very edge of the world, perched on a crumbling stone bridge that seems held together more by magic than mortar, stands the College of Winterhold, a sanctuary of arcane knowledge that clings to existence as precariously as it clings to the cliff face. The college was not always so isolated, not always so precarious. Once, it stood at the heart of a thriving city, surrounded by stone buildings and Nordic halls where merchants traded and families raised children beneath the aurora-touched sky. But that was before the Great Collapse, before the night in 4th Era 122, when the Sea of Ghosts rose up and swallowed nearly the entire city in a single catastrophic moment that still echoes through Nordic memory like a scream frozen in ice. The exact cause of the Great Collapse remains disputed even a century later, with the surviving citizens of Winterhold pointing accusing fingers at the college, while the mages maintain their innocence with the weary patience of those who have made this argument too many times before. What is known with certainty is that on that terrible night, the wards protecting the college held firm, while the city around it vanished into the churning waters below, leaving only Jarl's longhouse, a few scattered buildings, and the college itself standing on what had become an island of stone connected to the mainland by a single treacherous bridge. The structural reinforcement projects that followed became a permanent fixture of college life, with restoration mages maintaining ward networks throughout the remaining buildings, while alteration specialists worked to literally reshape the stone foundations, coaxing them into greater stability through sustained magical pressure applied over years and decades. The college's reputation never recovered. How could it, when the Nordic populace saw their entire city destroyed while the mages remained untouched in their towers? Yet the college endures, as it has endured for thousands of years through the rise and fall of empires, and within its frost-rimed walls operates a complex academic hierarchy that governs the study of magic in all its forms. Those who approach the college for the first time encounter more than just physical barriers. They face a deliberate test of magical competence administered at the very gate. The entrance examination has taken many forms throughout the college's history, but in recent years, under Arch-Mage Savos Arn's administration, it typically involves the casting of a specific spell to prove basic magical aptitude. The traditional ward test, administered by Faralda, one of the college's senior instructors, requires prospective students to cast a lesser ward capable of withstanding a modest magical assault. This serves multiple purposes. Beyond simple gatekeeping, it ensures that entering students possess at least rudimentary magical control, demonstrates their willingness to learn defensive magic, even if their interests lie elsewhere, and provides immediate data about their magical strength and technique that helps determine initial placement. Alternative entry paths exist for those who cannot pass the standard examination but possess other valuable qualities. Scholars with letters of recommendation from established mages, those who can demonstrate expertise in specific magical theories even without practical skill, or individuals bearing rare magical artifacts or knowledge are sometimes granted provisional entry under sponsorship of a current faculty member. Scholarship provisions, funded by a combination of college endowment funds and occasional noble patronage, allow talented but impoverished students to attend, though such scholarships are rare and highly competitive. The rejection appeal process is deliberately opaque and rarely successful. The college learned long ago that lowering standards to increase enrollment inevitably leads to dangerous accidents when insufficiently prepared students attempt magic beyond their capabilities. Once admitted, students enter at the rank of Apprentice, the lowest formal tier in the college's ranking system. Apprentices are expected to attend lectures, practice fundamental spells under supervision, and demonstrate progressive improvement in magical control and theoretical understanding. The requirements for advancement to adept status involve more than simply time served. Students must successfully cast a variety of spells from multiple schools of magic, pass written examinations on magical theory, and complete a practical demonstration before a panel of instructors. This demonstration typically requires the student to solve a magical problem using creative application of their learned skills, revealing not just rote memorization, but genuine understanding of magical principles. The advancement criteria were standardized during the tenure of Arch-Mage Gauldur in the First Era, who believed that inconsistent standards across different specializations weakened the college's academic integrity. Expert specialization marks the point where students choose a primary focus among the 5 great schools of magic, though they are encouraged to maintain at least basic competence in all areas. The path to expert rank requires sustained study under a master-level instructor, completion of independent research projects, and demonstration of advanced techniques specific to the chosen school. Those who aspire to master rank face even more rigorous requirements. Not only must they achieve exceptional proficiency in their chosen specialty, but they must also demonstrate teaching capability, as masters are expected to mentor lower-ranked students and occasionally lead instructional sessions. The teaching qualifications assessment involves supervised instruction of apprentice-level students, evaluation of lesson planning and pedagogical approach, and review by senior faculty who observe the candidate's ability to explain complex magical concepts in comprehensible terms. The position of Arch-Mage represents the pinnacle of college hierarchy, though the path to this role has varied considerably throughout history. In theory, the Arch-Mage is selected by consensus of the master-level faculty, but practical politics, personal relationships, and occasionally raw displays of magical power have all played roles in actual succession. Savos Aran, the current Arch-Mage, ascended to the position through a combination of political acumen, respected scholarly achievements, and the simple fact that he survived when other candidates did not, a reference to his role in the ill-fated expedition to Labyrinthian decades earlier, an incident that left psychological scars visible to anyone who speaks with him about those days. Looking further back through the college's history reveals a succession of archmages whose legacies shaped the institution in profound ways. Shalidor, one of the most celebrated archmages in history, led the college during the First Era and revolutionized magical education through his insistence on combining theoretical study with practical experimentation. His legendary mastery of multiple magical disciplines simultaneously challenged the growing trend toward narrow specialization, and many of his writings on magical theory remain foundational texts in the Arcaneum today. Shalidor's insights, magical puzzles he created to test and develop the skills of practitioners, continue to challenge mages centuries after his death. His greatest achievement, according to some scholars, was establishing the principle that magic should be studied systematically rather than guarded as secret knowledge hoarded by individual practitioners, a philosophy that put him at odds with some contemporary magical traditions, but ultimately became central to the college's identity. Arch-Mage Gauldur's legacy is more complicated, colored by the tragedy that ended his tenure. Gauldur achieved prominence for his work, standardizing academic requirements, and his research into extremely powerful enchantments. But his story ended in horror when his 3 sons, Jirik, Mikrul, and Sigdis, murdered him in a bid for power, stealing an amulet he had created that contained immense magical energy. The subsequent hunt for the 3 brothers and the sealing of their remains in separate tombs across Skyrim became the subject of numerous Nordic ballads, though the college rarely speaks of this dark chapter in its history. The gaps in succession records around this period suggest either deliberate suppression of uncomfortable details or loss of documents during subsequent turmoil. The mysterious disappearance of Arch-Mage Gauldur represents another gap in the college's historical narrative. Records indicate that Gauldur held the position during the First Era and was known for his expertise in conjuration, but details of his tenure are fragmentary at best. Some texts suggest he became obsessed with binding increasingly powerful Daedric entities, while others hint at conflicts with the Psijic Order over acceptable research practices. What is certain is that Gauldur ultimately left the college to pursue some personal quest, establishing a tomb that would later bear his name on an island in Lake Gear, where his remains would eventually be disturbed by treasure hunters and necromancers alike. These historical figures set precedents that continue to influence college operations in the Fourth Era. The staff hierarchy reflects this legacy, with clear distinctions between research-focused positions and teaching-focused tracks, though most faculty are expected to engage in both to some degree. Professors carry the heaviest teaching loads, typically instructing multiple courses across different rank levels while also maintaining their own research programs. The balance between these demands has been a source of ongoing debate. Some argue that excessive teaching obligations prevent meaningful research advancement, while others contend that teaching forces researchers to refine and communicate their ideas more effectively. Administrative positions, including the Master Wizard roles that oversee each school of magic, come with reduced teaching requirements but increased bureaucratic responsibilities, managing everything from resource allocation to disciplinary matters. The organizational structure of the 5 schools of magic reflects both practical considerations and historical tradition. The Destruction School, overseen by Master Wizard Feralda, occupies portions of the Hall of the Elements where destructive spell practice can be conducted with appropriate safety measures in place. The hierarchy within Destruction focuses heavily on control and precision. Raw power without discipline leads to the kind of accidents that can bring down buildings, as tragically demonstrated during a training incident in 4th Era 189 that resulted in significant structural damage and new mandatory ward protocols. Research within Destruction examines not just more powerful offensive spells, but also refinement of existing techniques, investigation of magical damage types and their interactions, and exploration of focused applications that maximize impact while minimizing collateral destruction. If you are still with me after hearing this, hit that like and subscribe button. The Restoration School operates under fundamentally different principles, its practitioners viewing magic not merely as a tool, but as an extension of divine will channeled through mortal understanding. Master Wizard Colette Marantz oversees restoration studies with a devotion that borders on the religious, which puts her somewhat at odds with the college's more secular academic approach. The healing halls within the college serve dual purposes: spaces for practicing curative magic and actual infirmaries where injuries sustained during magical experimentation can be treated. The temple connections that once linked restoration magic firmly to worship of the divines have weakened over the centuries, but echoes remain in the terminology and techniques. Restoration research examines the theoretical foundations of healing magic, the relationship between magicka and life force, the mechanics of ward spells that defend against both physical and magical assault, and the troubling applications of restoration magic to harm undead and Daedric entities. Troubling because it reveals that the same energies used for healing can be weaponized against beings whose existence defies natural order. The Illusion Department occupies some of the quietest spaces in the college, which seems appropriate for a school dedicated to affecting minds and perceptions. Master Wizard Drevis Naloran, whose nocturnal habits and preference for shadows make him difficult to locate during daylight hours, oversees research into the manipulation of consciousness itself. Illusion magic touches on philosophical questions that make even experienced scholars uncomfortable. If a spell can make someone perceive something that is not there, or fail to perceive something that is, what does this say about the reliability of mortal consciousness? The mental magic research conducted within the illusion department, explores charm effects that alter emotional states, fear spells that trigger primal survival responses, invisibility effects that bend light or simply convince observers to overlook what they see, and the dangerous boundary where suggestion becomes domination. The ethical debates surrounding illusion magic have raged since the school's formalization, with some arguing that any magic affecting minds without consent violates fundamental principles, while others contend that all social interaction involves elements of persuasion and influence. Conjuration studies, under the oversight of Master Wizard Phineas Gauldur, delve into perhaps the most controversial area of magical research. The summoning circles carved into stone floors in the lower halls of the college are marked with constantly maintained wards, because the consequences of a failed containment during a summoning can range from embarrassing to catastrophic depending on what was being called forth. Soul gem studies form a significant portion of conjuration research, examining how mortal souls can be captured, stored, and utilized as magical batteries for enchantments. The moral implications of this practice have been debated for millennia. Black soul gems, capable of holding human souls, are officially banned from use within the college, though everyone knows they exist and that some researchers continue to study them in secret. Conjuration encompasses not just the summoning of daedric entities, but also the reanimation of corpses, the creation of bound weapons from pure magicka, and the banishment of summoned creatures. The department's research focus includes improving summoning duration and entity control, understanding the nature of oblivion and how to safely create portals to it, and developing more efficient soul trap spells. The Alteration School, guided by Master Wizard Tolfder, who may be the oldest currently active member of the college faculty, engages in what might be described as reality-bending experiments, magic that changes the fundamental properties of matter and energy. Transmutation spells that convert iron ore to silver or silver to gold challenge conventional understanding of elemental properties. Paralyze effects that freeze targets in place manipulate the relationship between consciousness and physical movement. The water-breathing enchantments, flesh-hardening wards that turn skin temporarily to stone-like resilience, and telekinesis spells that move objects through force of will alone, all of these represent alteration magic's core principle that reality itself is more mutable than mortals typically assume. Tolfdir's patient, grandfatherly approach to instruction conceals a mind that has spent centuries contemplating magical theory, and his occasional cryptic remarks about the nature of time and space suggest research interests that extend far beyond the standard curriculum. The research project organization within the college follows protocols established over centuries and refined through painful experience. Funding allocation operates through a committee system where senior faculty review research proposals and distribute resources from the college's endowment. A fund built through centuries of donations, recovered artifacts sold to collectors, and occasionally crown support during eras when the relationship between the college and Skyrim's rulers was less antagonistic. Research proposals must outline objectives, methodology, required resources, and potential risks, a requirement added after an incident in 4th Era, 174. When a junior researcher's unreviewed experiment with planar instability created a temporary rift that took 3 master-level conjuration specialists 2 weeks to properly seal. Dangerous experiment containment procedures mandate that any research involving summoning entities above a certain power threshold, attempting new forms of magical fusion, or working with Elder Scrolls and similar reality-warping artifacts must be conducted in designated reinforced chambers with multiple redundant wards and at least one senior faculty member present. Artifact study permissions are granted sparingly and only to researchers who demonstrate both the magical capability to handle powerful objects safely and the theoretical knowledge to understand what they are studying. The college has lost too many promising students to cursed relics and unstable enchantments to take artifact research lightly. Collaborative research structures encourage joint projects between specialists from different schools, based on the recognition that many magical phenomena resist understanding from a single disciplinary perspective. A project examining the interaction between restoration wards and destruction magic, for instance, benefits from expertise in both schools, while research into enchanted summoning focuses requires collaboration between conjuration and enchanting specialists. The Arcaneum, the college's great library, stands as perhaps the institution's most valuable resource beyond the faculty themselves. Urag Groshub, the Orcish librarian who has maintained the collection for decades, operates a cataloging system of intimidating complexity. Every book, scroll, and loose parchment has been categorized not just by subject matter, but by historical period, author when known, magical hazard level, and cross-referenced connections to other texts. Urag's devotion to the collection borders on the obsessive. He tracks down rare volumes across Skyrim and beyond, paying informants and book dealers, occasionally purchasing entire estates' libraries to acquire a single desired text. The restricted section access levels reflect the reality that some knowledge is genuinely dangerous in untrained hands. Apprentice-level students can access general texts on magical theory and history, but are barred from advanced spellbooks and texts dealing with Daedric summoning, necromancy, or reality manipulation. Adepts gain broader access with faculty approval, while only masters and above can freely access the deepest restricted sections. Book acquisition protocols involve both purchase and recovery operations. When ancient Nord ruins are cleared of Draugr, the college sometimes sends representatives to recover any intact texts before they are lost to looters or decay. Urag maintains a network of contacts who alert him when interesting volumes appear for sale, and the college allocates a portion of its budget specifically for library expansion, scroll preservation. Methods combine both mundane and magical techniques. Climate-controlled storage chambers maintained by alteration spells that regulate temperature and humidity, careful handling procedures to prevent damage from oils and skin, and in some cases, magical stasis fields that slow the decay of particularly fragile documents. The Elder Scroll storage represents a special challenge, as the scrolls themselves resist conventional preservation and seem to exist partially outside normal time. The Elder Scroll, that briefly resided in the Arcaneum during the investigation of the Dragon Crisis, radiated power that made nearby books drift from shelves and caused temporal distortions in its vicinity. Time moved differently near the scroll, with some observers experiencing moments that seemed to stretch while others felt hours compressed to minutes. Student housing within the college reflects the institution's practical approach to accommodation. The Hall of Attainment provides rooms for apprentice and adept level students, with room assignments determined by a combination of seniority and academic standing. The chambers are austere by noble standards: a bed, desk, storage chest, and small personal space, but they offer something rare in Skyrim: warmth and shelter, maintained by permanent enchantments that keep the bitter cold at bay. The Hall of Countenance serves senior members who have achieved expert rank or above, offering larger quarters that can accommodate personal laboratories and extensive book collections. These assignments are semi-permanent, with some faculty members having occupied the same chambers for decades, personalizing them with a lifetime's accumulation of magical instruments, research notes, and arcane curiosities. The Arch-Mage's quarters, located in the highest accessible point of the college proper, come with the position and reflect both status and practical necessity. The Arch-Mage requires space for private meetings, storage of particularly sensitive documents and artifacts, and conducting research that demands absolute confidentiality. Access to these quarters is restricted even from other faculty members without explicit invitation, a boundary that serves both security and respect for the Arch-Mage's limited private time. Practice room scheduling has become increasingly complex as student enrollment fluctuates. During periods of high attendance, students must reserve time in designated practice chambers, with apprentices given less desirable time slots like early morning or late evening, while higher ranks claim more convenient hours. The system breeds some resentment, but prevents the chaos that would result from unrestricted access to limited facilities. Meal provision systems at the college are notably informal compared to other educational institutions. There is no great dining hall where students and faculty gather for communal meals. Instead, a small kitchen staff prepares simple fare that residents can collect at their convenience. Many faculty members prefer to take meals in their quarters, and students often eat while studying or practicing spells. This arrangement reflects the college's prioritization of research and study over social ritual, though informal gatherings do occur, particularly among students who form study groups and friendships despite the institution's individualistic culture. Magical regulation and safety protocols permeate every aspect of college life, written in rules that seem excessive until one considers the disasters they were created to prevent. Ward maintenance responsibilities are distributed across all faculty and senior students, with daily inspections of critical wards protecting structural integrity, containment circles, and artifact storage. The wards are layered and redundant. If one fails, others remain to prevent catastrophe, but maintaining this system requires constant vigilance and regular renewal of the magical energies that power them. Dangerous spell practice protocols mandate that destructive magic above a certain power threshold can only be practiced in designated areas with appropriate shielding, that summonings must occur within properly prepared circles, and that any experimental spell work must be logged and supervised. Summoning containment procedures have become increasingly strict following several incidents where improperly bound entities caused damage before they could be banished. The protocol now requires that the summoning circle be inspected by a senior conjuration specialist before any major summoning, that at least 2 qualified mages be present during the ritual, and that banishment scrolls be prepared in advance in case control is lost. Enchantment safety standards address the risks inherent in binding magical energy to objects. Overcharged enchantments can explode, cursed items can corrupt the enchanter, and failed enchantments can create unstable magical fields that interfere with other spells. The standards require proper grounding procedures, gradual power increase rather than attempting full-strength enchantments immediately, and mandatory testing periods before enchanted items are declared safe for general use. Accident response procedures are practiced regularly because magical accidents rarely announce themselves in advance. The college maintains response teams trained in medical treatment, magical containment, structural repair, and entity banishment, with clear protocols for who assumes command based on the nature of the emergency. Minor incidents, like spell misfires, causing small fires, or unintended transformations, occur with some regularity and are handled by junior faculty, but major incidents trigger full emergency protocols, including building evacuation, ward lockdowns, and in extreme cases, calling for assistance from the Psijic Order or other external magical authorities. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these whispered tales from Tamriel, hit that like button. It really motivates me to create similar Skyrim lores. The Psijic Order's relationship with the College of Winterhold stretches back through millennia of cooperation, competition, and occasional conflict. The Psijics, those enigmatic monks from the Isle of Artaeum who study magic in forms so advanced they seem to operate by entirely different principles than conventional mages, have long maintained connections with magical institutions across Tamriel while remaining fundamentally separate from them. Historical records, preserved in the Arcaneum document, Psijic advisor visits during various crises throughout the college's existence, times when the college's own expertise proved insufficient for the challenges it faced. These visits were always brief and cryptic, with the Psijics offering guidance that seemed deliberately incomplete, as if they believed full knowledge would be more dangerous than helpful. The Eye of Magnus incident in 4th Era 201 brought this relationship into sharp focus when Psijic monks appeared within the college itself, moving through time in ways that defied mortal comprehension. They manifested to specific individuals, warning of dangers connected to the mysterious sphere discovered in Sarthal and the massive magical construct known as the Eye of Magnus that Ankano, a Thalmor advisor embedded within the college, sought to exploit. The incident protocols established during this crisis revealed the Psijic's ability to perceive threats across multiple possible timelines and their willingness to intervene when they judged that reality itself hung in the party balance. Their removal of the Eye of Magnus to Artaeum, taking it beyond reach of any mortal faction, demonstrated both their power and their conviction that some artifacts are too dangerous for any institution to possess, regardless of good intentions. Communications with the Augur of Dunlain represent another thread of the college's connection to mysticism and powers beyond conventional magical understanding. The Augur, a former student whose experiments with magic went catastrophically wrong, exists now as a being of pure magical energy confined to the Midden, not quite alive in any traditional sense, but conscious and capable of communication. Speaking with the Augur is an unsettling experience, as it responds to questions with knowledge that seems to transcend normal information gathering, offering insights that suggest it perceives magical reality from a perspective fundamentally different from embodied mages. The college maintains the Augur's containment not out of cruelty but necessity. The being's current state is unstable, and releasing it from its confinement might result in its complete dissolution or transformation into something even more alien. Mysticism studies. The sixth school of magic that once held equal standing with the other five has largely faded from formal college curriculum by the Fourth Era. The school that dealt with manipulation of magical energies themselves, with soul manipulation and teleportation effects that blurred boundaries between realms, became increasingly difficult to teach as the number of practitioners dwindled and theoretical understanding fragmented. Some of the Psijic Order's techniques appear to involve mysticism-like effects, suggesting they preserved knowledge that the college allowed to atrophy. Occasional faculty members attempt to resurrect mysticism as a formal discipline, but without a critical mass of knowledgeable practitioners and standardized teaching methods, these efforts remain individual research projects rather than institutional programs. The Great Collapse casts a shadow over every aspect of college life, even a century after the catastrophe, shaping the institution's relationship with both Winterhold's surviving population and the broader Nordic culture of Skyrim. The structural reinforcement projects that began immediately after the collapse have never truly ended. They simply evolved from emergency measures into ongoing maintenance as the college's isolation became permanent. Teams of mages regularly inspect the foundation where bedrock meets magical reinforcement, monitoring for any signs that the wards holding the remaining landmass stable might be weakening. The bridge connecting the college to the mainland requires constant attention, with restoration and alteration specialists working in concert to prevent ice damage, stone fatigue, and the erosive power of salt spray from rendering it impassable. Reputation management became a critical concern in the collapse's aftermath, though the college has never developed effective strategies for addressing Nordic suspicions. Some faculty members argue for greater transparency and outreach to demonstrate that the college serves all of Skyrim, while others contend that attempting to court Nordic approval is both futile and beneath the institution's dignity. The relationship with Winterhold town remains poisonous. The Jarl barely conceals his hostility. The innkeeper refuses to serve college mages, and the few remaining townspeople view every magical accident or strange occurrence as evidence that the college will eventually destroy what little remains of their home. Blame attribution debates continue in scholarly journals and occasional public forums, with college representatives pointing to the lack of evidence connecting any college activity to the collapse, while skeptics note that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, particularly when dealing with magical forces that may leave no conventional traces. Reconstruction efforts for the city of Winterhold have been proposed repeatedly and failed each time. The college lacks the resources for such a massive undertaking. The Empire has never prioritized rebuilding a remote Nordic city when its resources are stretched across a continent, and the Nords themselves seem torn between wanting their city restored and refusing to accept help from the institution they blame for its destruction. Some scholars suggest that the collapse's true cause may have involved Daedric interference, a convergence of magical ley lines, or even deliberate sabotage by an unknown enemy, but without concrete evidence, these theories remain speculation. What is undeniable is that the event transformed the college from a respected, if sometimes controversial institution, into a pariah clinging to existence at the edge of the world. The Midden, the college's network of underground chambers and tunnels, contains layers of history that predate the current buildings. Some sections appear to be natural cave systems that were expanded and modified, while others show signs of deliberate construction using techniques that differ from those employed in the upper halls. The Midden serves multiple purposes: storage for less frequently accessed materials, space for experiments too dangerous or disruptive to conduct in the main college, an inadvertent archive of abandoned projects and forgotten research. Walking through the Midden reveals the accumulated detritus of centuries of magical education, broken enchanting tables, shattered soul gems, ritual circles whose purposes have been forgotten, and storage rooms where confiscated or discontinued research materials gather dust. The Atronach Forge, hidden in the deepest accessible portions of the Midden, represents conjuration research pushed to extremes that even the college officially disavows. This Daedric altar allows practitioners to literally create Daedra through combination of specific ingredients and soul gems, manufacturing entities that would otherwise require summoning from oblivion. The knowledge required to use the forge effectively has been deliberately obscured. No formal instruction covers it, and students who discover it typically do so through personal research and experimentation. The college tolerates its existence while maintaining plausible deniability about who uses it and for what purposes, a compromise between academic freedom and institutional liability. The Midden also contains evidence of experiments that went terribly wrong. The gauntlet permanently fused to skeletal remains found in one chamber tells a story of ambition, failure, and death. A student or researcher who attempted to bind themselves to a powerful artifact and lost everything in the process. These grim remnants serve as unofficial warnings to those who stumble upon them. Magic offers power, but power always carries a price, and overreaching leads to consequences that cannot always be undone. Artifact and relic management protocols attempt to impose order on the dangerous chaos that powerful magical objects represent. The Staff of Magnus, recovered during the Eye of Magnus crisis, now resides in the Arch-Mage's quarters under wards designed to prevent unauthorized access. The staff's ability to absorb magical energy makes it extraordinarily dangerous in the wrong hands. It could drain wards that protect the college's structure, kill mages by consuming their magicka reserves, or disrupt delicate magical experiments across the entire facility. Access to such artifacts is restricted to the Arch-Mage and select senior faculty who have demonstrated both the magical capability to handle them safely and the judgment to resist the temptation to abuse their power. Storage protocols for dangerous items involve multiple layers of protection. Physical barriers like locked doors and sealed chambers are the first line of defense, but magical wards provide the real security. Detection wards that alert faculty when someone approaches restricted areas, binding wards that prevent removal of artifacts from designated storage locations, and in extreme cases, curse wards that actively harm unauthorized individuals who attempt to access protected items. These measures seem excessive until one considers the historical artifact losses that prompted their implementation. The college's records document numerous instances where valuable or dangerous items simply vanished, sometimes stolen by students or visitors who managed to circumvent older security measures, other times claimed by accidents or disasters that destroyed storage areas before the artifacts could be recovered. Some losses remain unexplained mysteries that haunt the institution's collective memory. A collection of pre-collapse enchanting research notes documenting experimental techniques vanished during the chaos following the Great Collapse, and despite extensive searches, no trace of them has ever been found. An Elder Scroll that was supposedly stored in the Arcaneum during the Third Era appears in no current inventory, raising questions about whether it was removed, stolen, or perhaps never actually existed except in mistaken records. These gaps in the artifact inventory trouble administrators because they represent both security failures and lost knowledge, items and information that could have advanced magical understanding or prevented future disasters simply gone beyond recovery. The college protection duties extend beyond managing internal threats to defending against external ones. Faculty members rotate through assignments monitoring for approaching dangers, hostile mages seeking to seize college resources, rogue summoned entities that escaped containment elsewhere and wandered north, and occasionally dragon attacks during the Dragon Crisis when Alduin's return brought the ancient winged terrors back to Skyrim's skies. These protective responsibilities are considered part of the basic obligations of college membership, the price of enjoying the resources and security the institution provides. Even faculty members whose primary interests lie in pure theoretical research must take their turns maintaining wards, patrolling grounds, and responding to threats. Emeritus positions allow elderly or infirm faculty members to retire from active teaching and administrative duties while maintaining their college residence and research privileges. This arrangement benefits everyone. The college retains access to accumulated wisdom and expertise while reducing the burden on those no longer capable of maintaining full professional loads, and retiring faculty avoid the often fatal shock of leaving the only life they have known for decades. Some emeritus faculty remain quite active in research, publishing papers and mentoring select students informally, while others gradually withdraw into private studies, occasionally emerging to share insights before retreating back into scholarly isolation. The gaps in succession records that appear throughout college history reflect various causes: wars that disrupted record-keeping, fires that destroyed archives, deliberate suppression of controversial information, and simple administrative failure during periods of institutional chaos. Reconstructing accurate timelines of who served as Arch-Mage and when requires cross-referencing fragmentary college records with external sources like imperial chronologies, personal correspondence preserved in noble archives, and references in published magical treatises. Even with these efforts, significant uncertainties remain, particularly regarding the college's earliest centuries when record-keeping was less systematic and the institution itself was smaller and less formally organized. The Fifth Era approaches, though few alive in Fourth Era 201 will see its beginning, and the College of Winterhold endures as it has always endured, not through popularity or political favor, but through the irreplaceable value of the knowledge it preserves and the magic it teaches. The wind still howls across the sea of ghosts, the aurora still dances in the northern sky, and behind wards and walls of ancient stone, mages continue the work that has defined the college for millennia, pushing against the boundaries of what magic can accomplish while trying to avoid being consumed by the forces they seek to understand and control. The stone bridge still stands, defying the waves that claimed the city around it, and as long as it stands, the college remains, a testament to the human hunger for knowledge that persists even when surrounded by cold, isolation, and the ruins of past failures.